Over to you.
Morning, folks. Thank you for coming to this session. I'm aware that I'm up against people like Christian and Louise and Sharon, so I really appreciate you coming here. I think I've got the worst slot going, but this session, we're talking about setting up a great Teams meeting. I think two things set up a meeting. It's like a properly set up invite and all your settings being right. So we're going to go through that. Just quickly about myself, I'm Mark Thompson. I'm a freelance consultant, but I spend a lot of my time with the Inform team, and I'll tell you about those a little bit later. On social media, Super Simple 365, I do a lot about helping people stay up to date with Microsoft 365 and Teams. I do regular updates throughout the week. I do a roundup every couple of weeks. So if you're interested in keeping up with 365, then just look me up. Okay, let's start with 4.5 years of training teams. These are the 4 things which come out for end users, and people complain that they can't find anything, notifications are overwhelming, the chat is a mess, and they hate meetings. All this amazing stuff that you're seeing over these 2 days, none of that's going to matter if your users don't want to go near Teams. Okay, I'm going to focus on Teams meetings, and we're going to niche this down a bit more, and we're going to look at just the before. So we have a big session that I do. We look at the before, the during, and the after, from like the technical side, the engage, and everything to do with that. We're going to just get really just tight on the before part. So looking at why it matters to do this properly, looking at things to consider about the setup. Then we're going to go through, I'm going to take you through the very basic part just of setting up the invite, just to set the scene, and then we're going to go into more of the settings, into the tabs, the meeting options, then we'll have a look at breakout rooms, some tips and gotchas, and we'll wrap up with what's new and coming soon. One of the reasons that I've made it the first part, we're going to go through the bits that you'll already be familiar with, is that you can have this afterwards and take it to your organisation. I've also got a blog post which has got almost like a script for every part. So if you want to just take to users, next time you go to a meeting, especially if your meetings are rubbish, you can maybe spend 15-20 minutes and just go through this with your colleagues. Okay, first of all, why should you bother? This is about you, your colleagues, your organisation, and any guests that you've got coming to your session. It's about everyone having a better experience. Only the right people will come. If you get this set up properly, only the right people will come. I don't want people coming to my meeting if they don't belong there. Okay? You get more engagement, better decisions, learning, sharings, and outcomes. You actually produce something from your meeting, and of course, time and money. Yesterday, we were talking about the cost of doing things at work, and was it Microsoft say £75 an hour for someone to be doing something, checking their emails or stuff like that? Well, I've seen meetings, I've seen people's diaries that are back to back to back all day meetings, and there's 10, 15 people in these meetings, so you're looking like £1,000 an hour at least for these, and what comes out of them? Another meeting. Okay, so Teams versus Outlook. Now, this used to be a much easier question. So 4.5 years ago, I would say to people, you'd have to go into Teams. Then you could do it in Outlook. I don't think it really matters, unless you've got a compelling reason to do so. It's depending on which app you're in at the time. Do you want a simple or a rich invitation? All the stuff we're going to look at now, you've got to go to Teams to do it. And it comes down to personal preference. Just an example of that, I like checking people's availability in Outlook. And that's where I'm at, and that's where I'll often just kick off my meetings, because that's where I'm at. And you get, I say to people, whichever app you're in at a time, do it there. Remember, you can go back to Eva and go back afterwards and edit it. And then people say, okay, what about creating the Teams meeting in a channel? Okay, so channel meetings are different. They're great, they've got their place, but it's very much an open door. People can wander in and out. People press the meet now, and then everyone gets notified. So we're going to focus on a proper invited meeting. They've got their place, but you should make sure your users understand them, because they can cause a lot of frustration if they don't get them. Okay, just setting the scene. I know you folks know this, but let's just quickly whiz through. So we're going to go into Teams, we go to our calendar, we're going to go to the new meeting, and when the new meeting comes up, we've got some options across the top. The first one is the show as. Now that appeared last month. This is for you, as the organizer, to set people's availability when they come to your meeting. Okay, so I think a useful one might be working elsewhere. So if you've got something, if you're lucky enough to go off-site, maybe you want people to be completely unavailable, or maybe it's a sensitive meeting. You can make it private. People can go back in afterwards, and then they can change it. But this is for you to set what that's going to be. Category, this is really easy to overlook. This is one of Kirsty's specialities. This is set up in Outlook, and then you pull it through to Teams. Okay, so at a glance, when you look at your calendar, all your training commitments are the same color. Your project updates are the same color. You can just glance at your calendar in Teams, which is mainly purple, and it just brings it to life, and at a glance, you know what you've got coming up. Some simple ones, so time zones, your response options, I guess the request responses, does that matter to you? Do you want to stop people forwarding your meeting and these randoms rock up to your meeting? Especially if you want to keep them laser focused, you don't just get just strays coming in. Require registration. You don't want to turn this into a webinar. You want to keep it tight. You don't want people sharing anything, people signing up. Webinars are awesome, but they're a topic on their own. Okay, so we're going to keep this tight, and it's going to be invite only. Okay, so we're going to move down to the main body now, so we're going to add a meaningful title, add our recipients, the time and date, does it repeat, adding a channel. So we're not going to make it a channel meeting. We don't want to have that open door that people can just kind of come straying in. Add a location. Now remember, when you put a location on here, it will say that place isn't found. There's a little button where you can override that, and you can put your free type location in. So a lot of people can overlook that. Now details. I'm going to slow down a little bit for this part, because it's easy to overlook the power of this. So tell people what the meeting is about. Put the agenda and the timings there. The timings are important, because when you get Bob, who rattles on and on, you don't have to say, Bob, you're going on a bit. You can say, hey folks, the agenda says that we need to be at this point now. Okay, and then you can move everyone on without upsetting anybody. I know it sounds like a tiny point, but from a human relations point of view, put your timings in, and it's a great tool for keeping people on track. Oops. The rules. So when I'm showcasing something, and let's say all you folk are coming to the meeting to tell me what you think, and you're the learning and development guy, I want you to tell me about that. You're the graphics guy, I want you to tell me about that. I don't want you telling me your opinion of how it looks. So it might be that you tell people that we're going to talk about it. I want your feedback on your area of expertise, or whatever your rule is. Whatever derails your meetings, get that in. Your desired outcome. If people know what you're trying to achieve, it'll keep you focused. I get frustrated, and I'm sure we all do. You go into meetings and you're like, I just spent an hour on there, and what's the outcome? Except we've all got more stuff to do. And how to join. If you've got external people, then maybe tell people how to join. It might be that you want to highlight the fact that they can join with a code now, or whatever. You just put a code in and go to this link. Okay, when you're done, press save, and then it is saved. Okay, so now it appears in your Teams calendar and your Outlook calendar as well. It's actually got some color. Okay, so bring your calendar to life and make it a little bit easier for you. Okay, so you can right-click on it on your meeting, and then you get some more of these options. So you can go in and tweak it. You can chat with your participants. I like that, because you can start engaging your people before you even go to the meeting. Folks, we've got the XYZ meeting tomorrow. Make sure you've done your whatever is expected, or 10 minutes before, you can just put a reminder out and say, folks, we're starting in a minute. Make sure that you're ready to go. Grab yourself a coffee and come to the meeting. Okay. Now when you go into your meeting, you've got some tabs across the top. Let's just explore those. So you know about chat. I've just described one of the uses for that. Files. Make sure your users understand that when they upload a file from their computer, it's not going into the meeting really. Just make sure they understand it's going into their OneDrive, and then it's shared. Okay? The details, so you go into details, and it's like, how do I change the time? Where do I go? There's a little drop down there that shows the meeting info. Make sure they understand that that's where you get back into those settings, because when they go googly-eyed looking at all the options, they don't see it. Scheduling assistant, which is just great for rescheduling it. Meeting notes. Okay, so it's worth explaining this to people. So I went to a recurring meeting on Tuesday, and in the meeting notes, they just create a new section every time they meet. They just have the time and the date, and they had a few notes in there. It takes someone a couple of minutes, but it just helps people look at the history and see what's going on. So just maybe get your users just to spend a few minutes to understand that one. Okay, make sure they know that there's some things hidden below the drop down, and I'm going to slow down a second to tell you to revisit the whiteboard. So a few months ago, the whiteboarding teams got revamped, and it's now full of amazing templates like this. I know people who now use this template, and for their stand-up in the morning, they use the sticky notes and all these sections, and they use this to manage their meetings. It's not a thing before where you'd make some boxes and do some scrolling. It's an actual, real useful productivity tool now. And remember, with the change, it's a file that you can now share, you can manage, you can have governance on it. So the file changes for whiteboard are worth a second look. Your attendance is good for looking afterwards. Breakout rooms. Now, I'll talk about breakout rooms in a minute, but they're worth exploring and making sure you people understand, and make sure they do them in advance. Okay, let's slow down a second to look at this little plus. Make sure they know that you've got all this rich stuff in here. Now, I used to like using forms and the polls functionality in there, but polls has taken over from forms. You've got this new application in there that you can use. You can use that in advance to draw people in, and you can get an idea of what people think about something, and you can even open with that information. Okay, what else we've got up here? So the front end of our meeting is now done. Okay, so we've got that shop window, we've got it ready to go. And we should have a good, rich invite ready to go. Let's go a little bit deeper and look at the meeting options. If you can get your people to understand these settings, you're going to have some smoother meetings. And then just get them to understand some of the settings on the way in. Okay, so you might need to click on the ellipsis, drop down, go to meeting options. And then once you get in here, let's just look at some of this. Now, what you choose here will depend on the size of your meetings, the nature of the people who are coming. But who can bypass the lobby? Unless you've got a reason to keep people out, don't be having that pop-up all the time saying, so-and-so's in the lobby, can they come in quick? Because it just interrupts you. And especially if you're in your flow and people are focusing and this thing keeps popping up, unless I've got a reason not to, I would just let them in. Let the callers bypass the lobby. So if we'd chosen anything else than that one before, then we can decide whether people who phone in can come straight in. Now, I've been on meetings when, for whatever reason, a lot of people had to dial in, and you get in, XYZ person has now joined the meeting, and it just goes on, and you can't mute that person. So I would turn it off unless I've got a reason to do it. So that announcement one there for the no. Co-organisers. Okay, I'm going to slow down a little bit. You know that co-organisers are coming to your Teams meetings. I'll explore it a little bit later, but you can have 10 people. Let me give you an example. So Kirsty, my colleague here, she organised like a symposium for a big client, and they had 4 or 5 meeting rooms, and they were all running at the same time, these meetings. Now, she supported someone to organise them and set them up. And then the person who's organising was presenting on the first one. There was a problem with one of the other rooms. Kirsty knew how to fix it, but she didn't have the rights. Now, if she was a co-organiser, she could have just looked after that. Okay, so I'll explore that a little bit later. That is definitely worth making sure people know about. Who can present? So, depends on your organisation as well. I personally like to leave that to everybody because I like to welcome people in as they join. Okay, so when you join one of my sessions, if it's a training session or just an awareness session, if you speak to people, if I say, hey Bob, welcome to the session, you get them off mute, it tests their equipment. Okay, so if they speak to you, you can hear them, and then you make them an attendee. They're more likely to engage and talk to you because you've broken the ice, and you're not going to get 4 minutes in and someone's posting a message saying, should I be able to hear something? Okay, so I treat it almost like a register. Allow mic for attendees. You want people to speak, you probably do. Allow their camera, unless you've got a reason not to, I leave it on as well. I like that type of communications, but you might have your reasons for turning it off. Okay, I'm going to slow down a second. Record automatically. How many times have you been in a session that people were meant to record and they forget? and it starts late. So up until recently, I'd be really careful about that because of digital heap. Okay, you're going to end up, someday someone's going to say, hey Mark, you've got 25,000 hours of recordings here. We need to know what's in it. What's in those recordings? Except we've got the auto expiration of Teams meetings recordings now. So your organisation might have set that to 90 days. So if that also, when it's recorded, set it to record. So when it's 90 days old, next time you look at it, you get a pop-up and it tells you it's going to be auto-deleted. So it's up to you whether you use it or not. I do quite like it. Remember, your users need to understand that it goes into their OneDrive unless it's a channel meeting, and then it goes into the files area for the channel. Allow meeting chat. So do you want people chatting before and after? So I personally like it. It might be a nice in-between place, folks, is to have it so they can only chat when they're in the meeting. Okay, it keeps it real tight and focused. Allow reactions. Unless you are pretty miserable, you let people react. Except, I know of an organisation who they're very conscious of looking back over decisions in the past, and they're worried about, did a reaction to a message infer something at the time, so they don't like them. Okay, but I think that's pretty miserable personally. And cart captions. So I gotta be honest, folks, I had to have a look at what this meant. Okay, so you know the way Teams will give you, it'll just give you the subtitles on the fly, or it will put up on the screen. Some organisations like an actual person to do that manually, and that's what the cart captions are. It's a real person doing it for you. Okay, and then when you're done, click save. Sorry.
I understand that. What is it doing?
Okay, so when you go to a meeting and people are speaking, and it gives you a live transcription up on the screen. Okay, and you know that sometimes its interpretation can be a bit janky, can't it? Some organisations want an actual person to type what it's been said, and it feeds it in.
I see.
Yeah, exactly right. So some organisations where maybe where they use that as a record of what's being said, and you can imagine some organisations that where legal things are a big deal. That last one is just being aware that you can do it. Okay, so we're still before the meeting, so we're going to just quickly explore some things to consider on the way in. So you can get your camera set up. If you turn your camera on before you go in, you can set up your backgrounds. Let your users know that they can change their background in Teams, especially if your users are external facing. Okay, so they see your corporate background, not their book collection and their toys in the background. Although saying that, if you look at mine, I've always got like my Lego kits in the bag, so I don't mind it because it's part of who I am. But anyway, so let's go and look at the device options here. So just to clarify, up here we've got audio devices, but then it's got two underneath it as well. So your audio devices is just like your overarching device to use. It might have a built-in speaker, microphone. Those two options underneath it are just to override one of those. Next up, we've got a noise suppression. Sets to auto. High if it's really noisy where you are. Low is good for music. You would turn it off if you had really, really good microphones. Okay, but just leave it as default as it is. But make sure that they're aware of that. So choose your camera and mirror my video. If you find when you're looking at your video feed, it feels like your head and your arms are going the wrong way when you're showing, just slide that the other way and it becomes a lot more natural. I can't get a straight answer out of people which one they prefer, so that's just whatever it's at, go the opposite way. Your computer audio, it just uses your machine. You can just fine-tune your speaker. Go on mute on the way in. You know how there's loads of people already on YouTube, but I like to just go, if you're the first one in, your microphone will be on. So just remember that on the way in. You can set your phone audio if you want to. It might be that you've got some nice rooms in your work. You can tell it to use the audio in a room, and there's the option for it to use Bluetooth to try to connect to nearby rooms as well. Or maybe you're just you're taking part in the meeting room, and you just want to use yours for presenting or just sharing something. So you want any audio. So you're not going in causing feedback. So you can just turn it off from the start. And then when you're set, click Join Now. Okay, folks. So, do you finish at 5:02?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've created our basic invitation, we've explored the meetings tab, meeting options, and fine-tune as we went in. Let's have a quick look at breakout rooms, some tips and gotchas, and then I'll tell you about some things that are coming now. So this is worth exploring with your users so they get it. Breakout rooms are amazing, but they give users the heebie-jeebies because they're worried about it going wrong. Get them to do it in advance, okay? And if they're worried about how this works, I often say to people, just set up a meeting. Remember, your Gmail account can join, your Hotmail account can join. I tell them just to practice on themselves. Anyway, so start off by saying how many rooms you want, and then you can add more rooms. So across the top up there, you can have up to 50 rooms. There's a little recycle button where you can just wipe them and get started if you made a mess of them. You can just get rid of all your rooms altogether, or you can go into the settings up here in the right-hand side. Okay, so let's go into these room settings. So assign presenters to manage rooms. So remember, relatively recent-ish feature, you can put room managers, so you don't have to do everything. There's only one room manager for all the rooms, but you can set up multiple people. They have to be a presenter to start with, and whoever wants to manage, they pull the managed rights from the other person. They don't get given, they get pulled. But you only have one person. You don't assign a manager for each room. Set time limits, yes, it just automatically finishes up.
Can I just add, at the moment the organiser feature is separate, you still have to add people as presenters as well.
Yeah.
It's co-organiser.
Okay, so automatically move people to the rooms. You don't want to give people things to click. You want them to go to the room straight away and let people return to the main meeting. That's not on by default. I should have left this as default, actually. I personally think if a meeting is done, let them come back. They don't have to stay for the whole time. Let them come back and they can just come back to the main room. But you'll work out what's right for your area. Okay, assign your participants. Automatically or manually. If you're not sure what your attendance is going to be like, make it automatic so then so it sorts it out itself for you. Or if you know they're going to show up and you need them in certain areas for certain topics, then take the time to do it manually. You used to have to do this on the fly when it started, and it was a nightmare. So this is so much better. Make sure they understand it. Okay, and then you can go into each individual room and tweak some of the settings there if you want to. And then when you're set, either join or close off. So things to think about. I'm not going to go through all of them actually because I want to focus on the next few slides. But do use that stuff. Look at the first point up there. Bring your meetings to life with that stuff. Engage them before you even start. Give them plenty. If you don't give people plenty of notice, Viva is going to start calling you out from a well-being point of view for putting pressure on people for not giving them enough notice. I finish it. I have mine the default. All of my meetings finish 5 minutes early to give people that break in between their meetings. Don't be the only organiser, and don't be that person that sends out those meetings. Oh, let me go back one. I'll make sure you get these slides, by the way, folks, and I'm happy if you just take them away, and I've got a whole set of speaker notes that you can take. Let's look at some stuff that's coming soon. So we talked about that co-organiser role, and I've got a list on here of stuff that you can do. We had a couple of points pointed out here, but here's what you can do and what you can't do. It's in the co-organiser role, but blend that with the room managers, and you can get some good help with your meetings. Polls is a new app to take over from forms, and it's getting a new question type. So you've got the word cloud, the multiple choice, help me out somebody, what's the other one? Is it just a radio button? Or a free type? Anyway, there is about to be 4, this is, a lot of people, I've been showing this off, a lot of people like to look at this. So look out for this new, in fact it's available now, polls is. It's a really good way to engage people. A new way of people to join with the meeting ID that goes into your invite. So you can use it in the main app. People can use it to join in the browser, or you can use it in the mobile as well. So it's just another way to join and share your meetings. What else do we have? Collaborative annotations. So I know we're getting into the meeting a little bit now. So this uses the controls. This will look a lot like the whiteboard stuff, right? But it's not whiteboard. This is to annotate over anything that's on your screen. So if you want a way of picturing it, picture a whiteboard with clear glass. okay, that goes over whatever's on your screen. At the moment, it's a bit janky the way you export this to tell you to take a screenshot, but I really like that. Look at this, you can see where people are working. This has got nothing to do with Microsoft, this application, but it's just a really great way of bringing people together. And if nothing else, it'll break up your meeting and have a bit of fun. Okay. What else do we have? Speaker coach in Microsoft Teams meetings. You might be familiar with this from PowerPoint, but it will tell you on the fly, look at this, while you're talking, hey Mark, slow down a bit. You do it all the time, you get too excited and talk too quickly, okay? But it will then tell you afterwards and you can review it. I love that. I think that is great. What else do we have? Modern meetings, so I know an organisation where tens of thousands of their people are on machines that don't have the full-fat version of Microsoft Teams. So the fact that they're getting the proper controls, how long is it since you had that little bar in the front that was in the way? So those people have to join the browser, they're getting the proper experience now. So make sure they know about that. Okay, folks, so we don't really have that 5 minutes for that Q&A because I need to respect the next person. But if you want a bit of help keeping up with Microsoft 365, I blog about it all the time, I tweet about it, I do a roundup every couple of weeks. And if you wanted like some access to the slides, hit me up and I'll see what I can do. If you want help from an organisational point of view, the Inform team, I've got a lot to offer from adoption and the softer side of Microsoft 365.